Today we're going to travel back in time and cover a radically 80s sports car from Mitsubishi, the Starion. But this little 80s machine was not just sold by Mitsubishi. In North America, the Starion was rebadged not once, not twice, but 3 times, all under different Chrysler divisions as the Conquest. So it became known as the Starquest.
Do a barrel roll!
Nope. I said Starquest. Let's explore the Starquest's evolution from 1983 to 1989 and find out, is this car as cool as it looks? The Starion went on sale in Japan for 1982 and came to North America for the 1983 model year. It was intended to compete with cars like the Nissan Datsun Z, the Mazda RX-7, and the Toyota Supra. And no, the Starion is not named after the Japanese mispronunciation of stallion. That rumor was started because in the very early Japanese Starion promotional material, including this 1982 commercial, there's an image of a horse head and the Japanese narrator says Starion. Some people said, haha, they probably tried to name it Stallion and that's how they pronounced it. In 1986, the New York Times printed an article which fueled this rumor, citing credible sources such as Others Say and The Story Goes. And in 2005, Jeremy Clarkson repeated this on television. People are still posting that clip on social media, stating this name origin as fact. Now guys, let's just think about this logically for a second. Look at the 1982 Japanese commercial. When the horse head pops up, it says Starion. There's no L there. So you think they mispronounced it and misspelled it? But then what you'll hear as a response to that is, oh well, they were going to name it the Stallion, but they went back and changed it to Starion before the commercials or any of the brochures were released, as some elaborate cover-up to hide the fact that there was some kind of either pronunciation issue or translation error between Mitsubishi Japan and Mitsubishi North America. But if that was true, then why would they have left the horse head in any of the commercials? The reason there's a horse head behind the name is because, like the Eclipse, the Starion is named after a famous horse, the mythical horse Arion, the horse of none other than Hercules. The name Starion combines the word star with the mythical horse Arion, and if you actually translate this full commercial, the narrator literally says, Hercules' favorite horse Arion has now returned as a star. Starion. It's that simple. Now, if you don't believe me, or if you'd like to look into this more yourself, all of this information about the Starion name origin was already nicely put together for me in this article here by an Australian automotive writer, Stephanie Coombs. So I'd recommend reading that article. I'll link it in the description. That's called a source, New York Times. The Starion has got to be one of the most 80s cars of the 80s. I mean, just look at it. Pop-up headlights, lots of right angles, 80s futuristic horizontal lines, and no less than 3 fake hood vents. The taillights look like they were put together with Lego bricks, another common 80s styling cue. This is one cool looking car. The Starion is a rear drive hatchback, but a somewhat shallow trunk floor means it's not quite as cargo roomy as you might think. But the rear seats are split folding and a nice surround of glass, enhanced by the optional sunroof and reclining bucket seats, gives you a clear view of the night sky, so you can do some stargazing in your Starion. And should you want to hear a pleasing tune while you gaze up at the stars, all you need to do is open your door. Under the hood of all North American Starions for '83 is a 2.6-liter 4-cylinder, and with the help of a Mitsubishi Heavy Industries turbocharger, it puts out 145 stallions and 185 pound-feet of torque. And remember, it's 1983. These are good numbers for an early 80s American emissions engine. For the early model years, most markets outside of North America used a 2-liter turbo with an intercooler. We'll get an intercooler here a little later on. All I'm saying, Shannon, is the Prelude is clearly superior to the Celica. You're both losers. Has Jackie Chan ever driven a Prelude? And you think your 2.4 liter is impressive? I've got the largest displacement 4-cylinder on the market right here, plus turbo power. Yeah, but isn't that a forklift engine? Ah yes, let's address that now. Some people like to give this engine hate and call it a forklift engine. Well, seen as Mitsubishi Motors formed as the automotive division of Mitsubishi Heavy Duty Industries, it shouldn't be too surprising that carbureted versions of this engine were used in heavy duty equipment, including commercial trucks and, yes, forklifts. By the way, this engine was also turned sideways and mounted in K cars and minivans, and I realize that doesn't exactly make this engine sound any cooler, but I'm just illustrating that this engine was used in a wide range of applications, as many engines are. Different tuning, fuel delivery systems, and induction systems make a big difference on how this engine performs in its different applications. So there's a version of this engine that gets installed in forklifts. Big deal. Performance-wise, this Starion still kept up with RX-7s and Celica Supras, so it can't have been that lame of an engine, at least not for its time. Everything was slow in the early 80s. And there's actually some cool technology inside this engine. To reduce vibrations caused by pulsating power delivery, which is a common issue in larger 4-cylinders, Mitsubishi patented a balance shaft system for use in these engines, which they call the silent shaft, and it essentially consists of two shafts carrying identical eccentric weights, rotating in opposite directions at twice the crankshaft speed. This system was so effective that several other manufacturers licensed it from them for use in their engines, including Porsche, who then used it in their 944 engine. Now, I'm not going to pretend that these engines are perfect. I read that cracked cylinder heads are a pretty common issue with these, and what makes them prone to cracking is that they use Mitsubishi's MCA system. That stands for Mitsubishi Clean Air. Oh great, emissions crap. So what is that? Well, the G54B is technically an 8-valve engine, but in its North American automotive applications, in addition to the intake and exhaust valves, there's a third, smaller jet valve which sucks in more air from separate intake manifold passages at a faster rate because it's narrower, creating a swirling effect which helps achieve more complete combustion. This is mostly done for emissions, but Mitsubishi does claim it improves your fuel economy and increases power too. The problem with this system is, in the Starion, they don't get cooled enough and they end up cracking the cylinder head. Ironically, in contrast to people slamming this as a forklift engine, this engine's biggest problem has nothing to do with that it's used in a forklift. In fact, the forklift version doesn't even have this problem at all because it uses a different 8-valve cylinder head without these MCA jets. The exclusive transmission for 1983 was a 5-speed manual AMN, but for some reason if you wanted an automatic, well, that became an option in 1984. 4-wheel disc brakes and fully independent suspension was also standard. 1983 was limited to just 2 trims, Standard and LS, and your standard Starion comes with 14-inch alloy wheels, a rear defroster and wiper, color-matched bumpers, full instrumentation, and I mean full, oil pressure, voltmeter, a boost gauge, everything even John Davis would want, plus a digital clock, power windows, power steering, and a 4-speaker AM/FM stereo. If you upgrade to the LS trim, you did get this digital cluster instead. That was a big fad in the 80s, you had to do it. Now this isn't actually a fully digital cluster, only the boost gauge, and speedo are digital, and while it still looks pretty cool, MotorWeek does point out in their review that it has a pretty big flaw. Like most modern infotainment systems, the TAC lags behind what's actually going on, which means if you're power shifting, it's not only useless, but actually counterproductive, and would probably be better if it just wasn't there. Other LS upgrades include these turbo pinstripe graphics. You want the peasants to know you're driving a turbo, don't you? Air conditioning, velour upholstered seats with lumbar, and an 8-speaker cassette sound system. That's a lot of speakers for 1983. Two-tone paint and a leather seat package are LS options, and either model can be equipped with a package that gives you a limited slip differential, a 15-inch alloy wheel and tire package, and a rear brake lockup control system. Basically an early anti-lock braking system, but only on the rear, but according to MotorWeek's panic stop tests, it was pretty effective. In 1984, trim levels extend to 3, LS, LE, and ES. The LS is positioned as the entry-level model, for the most part comparable to the base model from last year, but there are less options you can add to this model. The LE is intended to be the slightly more luxury-oriented model. That's the one that you can get with an automatic transmission, and the one that now comes with the half-digital dash. It also exclusively gets power door locks, automatic climate control, and a 6-speaker cassette stereo sound system with a super cool graphic equalizer, although it is missing a proper volume knob. There's no 8-speaker sound system anymore. For some reason, that appears to have been a one-year-only thing. The ES is going to be your sport-oriented model. It's now the one you can option with the limited slip, the rear brake anti anti-lock system, and it also comes with wider tires on 15-inch wheels. There are a few cosmetic changes for 1984. The taillights, they don't have the vertical lines in them anymore that make them look like Lego bricks. The poorly received non-functional hood vents have also been deleted, and there's a new front bumper that loses the license plate cutout and gains integrated fog lights alongside the turn signals. 1984 is the year the Starion gets rebadged as a Chrysler product, and apparently these front-end styling changes came from the Dodge Plymouth versions, which Mitsubishi also decided to adopt. So at this point, I guess we should talk about the Dodge Plymouth version. To set the stage, you need to know that Chrysler purchased a 15% stake in Mitsubishi Motors back in 1971. This helped Mitsubishi expand into the American market and helped Chrysler sell some smaller, more fuel-efficient cars at a time when they were in demand, but Chrysler's product line had a serious gap there. So Chrysler Corporation branded Mitsubishi products like the Dodge Colt and later others began being imported and sold in the United States and Canada. Fast forward to the early 1980s, Mitsubishi began opening their own dealerships in North America. This initially caused some tension between the companies, but eventually led to the joint venture partnership of Diamond Star Motors, officially incorporated in October 1985. But to back up just a little bit, no doubt when the Starion went on sale, they wanted a piece of it, and honestly this would be beneficial for Mitsubishi too, since Chrysler branded rebadges would likely allow them to sell more cars overall. Since Mitsubishi wasn't a very established name, nor did they have a very established North American dealership network back then, they still don't. So in 1984, both Dodge and Plymouth began selling the Conquest. And hopefully that clears up another common misconception. The Starquest is not a Diamond Star Motors joint venture project, although it did play a role in creating that partnership. It's pretty much a 100% Mitsubishi product. Hi Dad. What the hell is that? It's my new sports car, the Mitsubishi Starion. Oh hell no, ain't no son of mine parking a foreign car in my driveway. Get that thing out of here. Why don't you get yourself a real car, like a Chrysler? Even their economy cars are great. I got the optional 2.6 liter in this little Dodge here, and it's great. Same engine that's in your mom's minivan. Dad, that's, whatever. What did I just tell you, boy? Don't worry, Dad, I traded my Japanese car in at Dodge. This is their latest sports car. It's called the Conquest. Ah, good job, son. You know what, let me clear some space in the garage for you. That thing looks too nice to park outside. So what's the difference between the Conquest and the Starion? Well, not much, but there are a few things. The Mitsubishi badges are deleted, and there kinda isn't any branding on the Conquest, save for on the tailgate it will say imported for Plymouth or imported for Dodge. Instead of turbo graphics on the side, these ones weirdly have the turbo branding on the door handles. I think that's the strangest place I've ever seen turbo branding. The Dodge and Plymouth versions have slightly different taillights with more horizontal lines. Unlike the Mitsubishi, which was now split into 3 trims, the Plymouth and Dodges appear to just have been sold in one trim, with all of the various features available as options or option packages. The digital cluster, leather-wrapped steering wheel, and a voice alert system are part of what's called the Technica package, which also adds a badge to the fender. Yes, I just said voice alert system. Certain Starquest models can talk to you, and I don't just mean Jackie Chan's.
Attention, Smokey in pursuit. Attention, Smokey in pursuit.
Do a barrel roll.
Now, if you wanted the Conquest to speak to you, you had to get this Technica package. And since the voice comes from Mitsubishi's esi-r system, it uses a digitized female voice, which sounds like this.
Please fasten seatbelt.
That's a different voice from the one you'll hear in true Chrysler product talking cars, of which they had many in the 80s, which use Chrysler's own electronic voice alert system and sound like this.
Your engine oil pressure is critical.
Now, not all model years talk. I think it's just 84 to 86. I could be wrong on that though, because it was very hard to find any info on this system, but it looks like the Technica package was available on Conquests from 84 to at least 86, maybe 87. As for Starions, the brochures never mention the voice alert system as being an option, although they do say the eti-r system tells you if your headlights are left on, so maybe this system was just standard on the Starions for the talking model years, but that I'm not sure of. I had a really hard time time finding information on this system, but someone watching probably knows, so please enlighten me in the comments. By the way, this channel I'm borrowing this Talking Conquest clip from is called Starquest Steve, an epic name for a Starquest guy, and it also looks like he runs the #1 supplier for Starquest parts, and I thought this was cool. He has replacement cylinder heads without the MCA jet valves to eliminate the cracking head issue I told you about earlier. 1985 brings a few small changes, including power window switches on the door panels instead of the center console, a new steering wheel, and a new fully digital gauge cluster that even now has graphics that illuminate to tell you what your climate control settings are. Things really start to get exciting mid-year in 85 though, when Mitsubishi introduces the Starion ESI as an 85.5 model. The ESI is a loaded Starion, but you don't just buy it for the automatic climate control, graphic EQ cassette, or power mirrors. You buy it for the intercooler they added to the turbo engine. This brings horsepower up to 170 and torque to 220, and of course it comes with the 5-speed manual, the limited slip, and the rear anti-lock system. This is actually a very rare half-year only model, and I don't think there's a Dodge Plymouth equivalent. But more upgrades come for 1986, and that's when the Starion finally hits its prime. Meet the Starion esi-r. The esi-r is like the ESI, but it gets wide. See them box flares? Power also jumps up a little bit more to 176 stallions and torque to 223, and the Conquest gets on board the wide-body intercooler train too with the Conquest TSI. The wide-body also gets offset 16-inch wheels, and it comes so fully loaded that the only options are the sunroof and leather. 0 to 60 on the intercooled wide-body Starquest is now down to about 7.3 seconds, and in a 1986 Motor Week comparison test, the Starion esi-r held its own in every test against the 300ZX, RX-7, and the Porsche 944. In overall lap times, it was only 3 seconds slower than the much more expensive Porsche, less than a second slower than the RX-7, and actually slightly faster than the 300ZX. Oh, but it's just a stupid forklift engine, right? For 86, the Starion is only sold in LE and esi-r trims, and the LE is the base model that's still pretty good, but a little more luxury oriented with the available auto. Of course, it's a narrow body with the non-intercooled engine. The digital cluster is still an option in that one, and you can option leather or the sunroof on this one as well. And by the way, look at what the leather seats look like in 86. What is this, a Cressida? Remember that by this point, all of these cars have power windows, power door locks and mirrors, automatic climate control, and a 6-speaker stereo cassette player with an equalizer. This might be one of the earlier examples of a sports car being combined with luxury car features. They're all like that now, but that wasn't really a thing yet in the 80s. The Conquest was also being sold in 2 models, the narrow body base and the intercooler wide body TSI, with pretty much all the same things going on as the Starion models, except for some reason Chrysler still really wanted to put the turbo lettering on the door handles. I believe that by 86, most Starquests were being sold of the Dodge Plymouth variety, probably because there were far more Dodge Plymouth dealers than Mitsubishi dealers, so they were just easier to get. There's only minor changes for 1987. All US models now have those annoying shoulder belts that were mandated if you didn't have an airbag. On the Chrysler side of things though, there's a branding change. All Conquests are now Chrysler Conquests, not sold through Dodge or Plymouth. More upgrades hit the Starquest for 1988. A larger intercooler and some recalibrating increases power output to 188 stallions and 234 pound-feet of torque. Not bad for a forklift engine. The Starion now comes in ESI and esi-r trims, meaning they all have the intercooler engine now, and they are all wide bodies now as well. The ESR is positioned as the upper trim, so it gets more standard options like air conditioning, the leather-wrapped steering wheel, power door locks, a power antenna. It even has heated mirrors now. What other sports cars had heated mirrors in the 80s? Most luxury cars didn't even have that yet. The limited slip is still standard on the ESR, but no longer offered on the ESI. Same goes with the rear anti-lock brakes, and you can't get leather or the sunroof on the ESI anymore either. They added an optional sport handling package to the wide body for 88. It gets you even wider offset 16-inch wheels. I'm talking 2 25s on the front and 2 45s on the back, as well as 8-way manually adjustable shock absorbers. There's also a new steering wheel for 1988, but it's a pretty dull one, not gonna lie. 1989 was the last year for the Starquest, and by this point it was overshadowed and outsold by Diamond Star joint venture vehicles like the Eclipse, the Laser, and the Talon. So a second generation was never developed. Well, I've convinced myself I want one now. What about you? Let me know in the comments what you think of the Mitsubishi Starion.
Starion esi-r.
Nice approach, Roger.
Do a barrel roll.